Here's the summertime chatterbait masterclass. When it comes to summertime chatterbait fishing, there are a few little differences. So what's different about summertime chatterbait fishing? The main thing here is grass. Now, sure, you can just cast your chatterbaits out and just straight retrieve them. However, now that we have a lot of grass in the summer, we actually also want to slow down our chatterbait fishing. I'm going to cast this out and kind of let it sink. I can let it go all the way to bottom or like midway in the water column, and I'm going to reel this, but pretty slowly. The goal here is actually, I want my chatterbait to kind of start sinking. I don't want it to rise, because what we're looking for here is to get this chatterbait stuck into grass on purpose. Once you feel your chatterbait getting stuck and you don't feel the thumping of your blade anymore, just let it sit there for a split second. And then you're gonna rip your rod up and rip that chatterbait out of the grass. And right now in the summer, these bass will be hiding around that grass, and they'll hear and see a chatterbait coming, and they'll look at it and they'll go into the grass and they're like, where did that thing go? And they'll come to inspect it. And then when you rip it out and that chatterbait comes flying out of that grass, a lot of the times the bass will have a reaction bite to that chatterbait flying out of that grass. After you rip that chatterbait out of the grass, if you don't get a bite, then you go back to slowly reeling. I want to emphasize slow here. A lot of times people fish a chatterbait just a touch too fast, so just try slowing it down a little bit. When it comes to chatterbait, no, you do not need a jackhammer, and I used to say that you need a Z-Man chatterbait. However, Z-Man's patent on how they had their heads connected to the blade has run out. That patent was protecting Z-Man from having one of the best chatterbaits, because when you cast it out their chatterbait, as soon as you turn that reel handle or as soon as you popped it, you could feel that vibration. That's the sign of good chatterbait now. You don't necessarily have to go after the brand. If you try a chatterbait out and when you start reeling it, if that blade starts thumping as soon as your reel starts turning or that bait starts moving, that's a good chatterbait. And when it comes to the colors of my chatterbaits, I keep it super simple. Generally, it's going to be a green pumpkin. However, if I'm fishing in darker water, like stained water, yes, again, green pumpkin. However, that stained water or like in night or like low light conditions, like when it's super cloudy out, black and blue is always a great option. However, in that muddy water or even in clear water, white is a really great option, because the white, especially muddy water, when light hits it, when it's sunny out in that muddy water, white will kind of glow in muddy water. For my trailer options, there's a lot of great ones. I like a trailer that has like a pintail. So this is the Mooch Minnow from Crush City, but also these fish profiles. So like this is a Berkeley fish starter, but also the Yamamoto Zako are great options for that fish profile with just his tail kind of going back and forth. But if you do want to use a paddle tail, you're more than welcome to. However, my one recommendation is to rig it upside down, to have that boot tail facing up, because the way that a chatterbait swims, having this boot tail up will allow the most amount of action out of that tail. So what are you waiting for? Get out there.